Toi Moana. So, welcome councillors to this meeting of the Regional Council. In opening the meeting, could I remind councillors and staff that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The recording will be made available on the Regional Council website following the meeting. Could also remind you that local government decision making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and public for comments made in this forum that subsequently may be challenged in the court of law and found to be slanderous. So if those opening comments, could I ask Councillor Thurston for an opening karakia, please?
Colleagues, please be outstanding. Colleagues, we recently participated in Anzac Day, and one of our colleagues, Councillor Shirley, is currently on bereavement leave. His 103-year-old father, I think from memory, died on his actual birthday. And today we thank those men and women for their service. He was a returned serviceman. But the karakia, Almighty God, we ask that you give us wisdom in the decisions we make here today, and give us guidance in working with our regional communities to promote their social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Thurston. We have apologies from Councillor Crosby, but who may attend intermittently. He's engaged with LGNZ business. Apologies which have been noted by Councillor Thurston from Councillor Shirley and Councillor Von Duddleson. And we have Councillor Toi Iti online with us because he can't get out of Rutoki. So welcome, Toi, to the hui. There is no public. I'll move the adoption of those apologies. Thank you, Councillor McDonald. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. There's no public forum. Items not on the agenda. You'll see there is a late item on the agenda, governance proposals for the Rotorua Future Development Strategy. It was not included in the original agenda because it arrived too late, but given the timelines we're operating to that, it will be captured at the end of this meeting. Can I have a mover that it be moved, Councillor Winters, second and Councillor White, that we receive that be added to the agenda. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Order of business, noting that the governance proposal for the Rotorua Development of the Joint Committee will be at the end of this public section. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest, councillors, in today's agenda? There appears to be none. Thank you. Public business to be transferred open into the open. There are none. Can we move through to the Regional Council minutes of the 16th of March 23? Are there any amendments, or before we move to the matters arising, any amendments in terms of the correctness of those minutes? If not, can I have a mover and a second? Move Councillor Nees, second and Councillor Winters. All those in favour say aye. Against. Any matters arising out of those minutes that won't be dealt with in the fullness of today's meeting? None. Thank you. Right, first agenda on the item is agenda item 9.1, which is the chairperson's report. So I'll move the adoption of that. Could I just note that on the 25th of April, Councillor Kat McMillan was with Councillor Von Duddleson and myself at the Anzac ceremony, which was a very good ceremony here in Tauranga, very well attended, and the weather was fine. Is there anything else in terms of my report here that anyone wants any further explanation on?
Explanation, Chair, but I attended the Anzac parade out at Whitiwatarangi Marae in Welcome Bay, and that was well attended as well. Kia ora.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm doing a Councillor Nees here, just to prove I did read all 356 pages. The 6th of April meeting with Lake Tarawera Ratepayers Association took place in Rotorua, not Tauranga.
You, Councillor Thurston, you are so correct. Anything else? Councillor Nees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just the comment about the regional sector meeting where learnings from recent events were shared by Gisborne and Hawke's Bay. I know that we have got have requested that those learnings get collated and brought back to us so we can consider what we may have to do differently. So I just wonder, have we got a time frame for that to come back?
Chief Executive, so there was two components to that. Firstly, there was a presentation, a slide presentation. Are we able to get that for councillors?
Yes, through you, Chair. And also there's a report to operations and monitoring for our region, so we can add in more information in terms of lessons learnt from other regions as well.
And I think we'll keep a watching brief. You would have noticed in the last, I think, 2 weeks, there was a formal notification from Aniwai Ormsby, the chair of Hawke's Bay, that they've now launched an investigation into the events leading up to it and the adequacy of the infrastructure to withstand what happened. So we'll just keep you up to date with that as it progresses. Do you know who's chairing that, Fiona? The review?
No, I don't.
No, I can't recall who it was. And you might just want to note that Bill Bayfield started as acting CE there a week ago. Okay, so I've moved it. Do we have a seconder in terms of adopting the chair's report? Councillor McMillan. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. 9.2 Rangataiki Floodway Spillway Upgrade. Mr Townsend.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. I'll take the report as read, including the attachments, and I'll just point out a correction picked out by eagle-eyed Councillor Winters, but the commencement date it's set in the procurement plan August 2024. It should actually be August 2023. Also note that back in March, we went through this particular project in quite some detail, so I'm not going to repeat that. But what I have done is just a few slides just to bring you up to date with where we're at. So.
Thank you, Mr Townsend. I think the really critical issue here is bullet point number 4 in terms of the recommendations, which is essentially we're endeavouring to get some external funding, but it is not yet approved.
Yeah, that's correct, and we have been advised that we can meet with the board on the 1st of June. They haven't finalised that, but that's the date that they've given us so far, and we've sort of worked through a report for them and a presentation. So we are hopeful that we'll get that green light very shortly.
Carry on. Councillor Nees.
There was just one item I had a query about, and that was on page 36 of our agenda, and it's the financial implications that you've got there. And I might be incredibly thick, but we have quite a jump in targeted rates between 23-24 and 24-25, going from 205,000 to 453,000, and yet the percentage movement in the targeted rates is on the second to last row of the table is only 1%.
I might have to defer to, I don't know if you can pick that up, Matt. Okay. I've got no clicker here, so there it is. Sorry.
Could I just commend staff, Mark, on the interaction you've had with the community? Because reading this document here, it would appear that it's been very comprehensive. You've got total support from the community in terms of this revised proposal. So, and I know staff have put a lot of effort into it. So if you could just pass our acknowledgement to staff for the effort that's gone into that.
Certainly, and I mean that's right across council, from comms, strategic engagement, obviously the engineering team and rivers and drainage as well. So we really work well together, and I think we've got a very informed and motivated community, of course, so which always helps. Anyway, that's stealing the thunder from my last slide, but anyway. Okay, so I mean, here's a demonstration here that our graphics and comms team have put together. A lovely depiction, very easy to understand, obviously with a fixed crest weir on the right and the contingency gates on the left. So it's something we've been using most recently to depict our job. Just the cost comparison impacts. I think I displayed this last time when we met in March. We went through this in a bit of detail with the community just to explain why the costs have gone up. Number of technical reasons following the detailed design, and just to make sure that we've got a very resilient structure that we know is going to work. So I guess following on from Councillor Neese's question, this is some of the graphics that we showed to the public. Basically, this is a residential property in Edgecombe where we're paying off that increase in 20 years. We can only show 10 years. Obviously, it's the screen's not wide enough otherwise. But what it shows that a difference between the different options was only about, I think it was $55 by the time you get 10 years. So an increase in their rates of $55 between the different options, and you extend that out. So yeah, quite a minimal impact. And then if you go through to a 135 hectare farm, I think it's around about $3,000 or $4,000 from memory. Again, I think the comment that came back from the people there at the meeting was it's a no-brainer, which is quite positive, of course. So yeah, this is the graphic. So what we used on the day was everyone got outfitted with 2 dots in order for them to put up on our chart. And the first one there is they understand the options and impacts of each, and you can see everybody has put their dot there that they understand, and then which option do you prefer, sorry. And again, everybody has selected that fixed crest weir. And so, yeah, absolutely fantastic result. If you compare it to a similar meeting we had in June 2020, we had 90%. So now we've got 100. So, yeah, good news.
McMillan.
Do you think that's partly because of Gabrielle and Hale that people are sort of much more committed now to flood protection, sort of going up from the 90 to 100% of, yep, let's do this?
I'd say definitely. I'd like to think we'd have pretty good support anyway, but certainly that has reinforced it. So,
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, can I just congratulate Mark and his team, please, because myself and Councillor Winters been to a couple of their meetings, and the public were very, very supportive. I think the biggest issue, though, and I take on what Councillor McMillan has said, but 20 years these people have been waiting for this, and we're talking, some pretty serious costs to the community over those few years. We've had some pretty horrific flooding, so it is important that just carries on. And everybody was very, very after the meeting. I know they spoke to myself and Councillor Winters. People just want to get on with this. They're just tired of worrying about flooding. And I have to say that on Monday night when I was sitting at home, lying in my bed at home, and I could hear that rain coming down, I was going, oh God, geez, surely not. But we've dodged a bullet again, I hope, for a little bit longer. But yeah, I just want to just congratulate Mark and his team. It's because there has been some discussion about whether the 90 odd metre was the right thing to do, and now these radial gates are obviously the right thing to do. One question though is I would hope that, Mark, some of the construction is going to be built within the Eastern Bay of Plenty at least, so there's not all that extra cost to come into the country. Or can you give me some feed up on that?
Yeah, so there's an element of the fabrication of the gates. We've got we've got 4 shortlisted companies, one of which is based here in Mount Maunganui. The others are outside of the region. And when it comes to the civil construction, 3 of them are based in the Bay of Plenty, and one is based outside. So there's a good chance that particularly the Eastern Bay and Mount Maunganui will be involved with this construction.
Thank you, Chair.
A couple of questions from me, Mr. Townsend. Firstly, the operation of the spillway is clearly fixed, but the operation of the radial gates, the control mechanism is automated, and it's going. Well, is it automated? Is it run out of the flood room in Whakatane?
Yes, it is automated, and yes, it will be run out of the flood room. So very, very similar operation to the Okere gates. So we'll have remote access. So if I'm lying in bed on the Monday evening, I can probably activate it as well. But obviously, we'll be going through quite strict training for each of the staff that would be involved in the use of the gates. There's a number of supporting infrastructure that's our data services team will be putting in place as well, which obviously help with that operation.
Thank you. And the other question is in regard, we've got the procurement plan in front of us, but essentially what we've got in front of us in terms of this recommendation is essentially just estimates. The critical pathway here is what do the costs contracted come in at? Is this going, because what's not in the procurement plan here is the variations that could be contained in the contract. Are we going to run a pretty strict profile over what those variations can be? Because to us, relative to the commentary we've had from Kānoa, this needs to be on time and it needs to be on budget.
Yeah, we've gone through with quite a lot of scrutiny. We've taken quite a bit of time working with the quantity surveyor and then going back through the team and testing things with the industry as well. So we're confident at present. We've pre-purchased material as well, which is the sheet pile material, which is the most volatile. So we're confident that that we've got it covered. We've also increased the contingency. Usually we'd have a contingency of 10% at this stage. We've increased that to 15% due to the volatility. So yes, we'll be watching it very, very closely, as we do with all of our major construction projects. So yeah, we're very mindful of the need to come in on time and on budget, that's for sure.
Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, just wondering, with the waiting for the funding approval and the timeframes, could it potentially blow it out so that you haven't got the right season for construction, or are you confident? Because it's quite tight, isn't it? So you've got the June consent hopefully granted, and then bang, 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 and presumably you can't construct in the worst weather of the year, or can you?
Yeah, so I'm hoping, of course, that we get approval today, and if so, we'll just be going as if we've got the funding. So regardless of where the funding comes from, the time frame will still be the same. So yeah, we've got a quite a strict program, and yeah, we're committed to delivering on it. So,
Councillor Winters.
Question after Mark's finished his presentation, or was that the last one?
I think he's finished.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, Councillor Campbell said, him and I attended the community meeting, and congratulations to staff for the presentation. 100% approval, Mark. That was superb, getting that buy-in from a lot of anxious people who are just waiting for this to happen. So I think when you go down to Wellington, to the Kānoa board, I think you need to go with this council's approval. Yes, we're pressing the go button, but any more funding from Kānoa would be really appreciated, because this is a huge cost to that community, and it's rated back to that community. And yes, you can see the numbers, and it's going to have long-term implications for that community. So any more funding from Kānoa would be really appreciated, and I think you have that full support of this council today to say that to the Kānoa board. Yes, they're putting their hand up, but any more would be absolutely appreciated. Mr. Chairman, can I also comment on the recent last week floods, and comment to Angie and the team for getting it up on Facebook when Matahina was going to be opened again. Lots of anxious people. Yep, the river goes up, and I get the phone calls and Malcolm gets the phone calls, what's happening? We'll go on Facebook, and that was a really good graphic that you did, Angie, on to say Mana was opening the dam. And yes, this is a precaution. This is what we're good at now, is predicting these sort of rainfalls, and we can have got lots of controls in place. But the pleasing thing about that Edgecombe meeting, Mr. Chairman, was the community said, do it once, do it right. Let's get this right. And you got the full backing, 100% to proceed today. So I'm more than happy, Mr. Chairman, to move 1 to 7 today. And let's get on and do this. We've been waiting a long time. This is Michael Cullen's final recommendation, that we get on with these radial gates. And so I'm particularly pleased that we can do this today, and you have the full backing of this council, Mark, to get on and do it.
Thank you, Councillor Winters. So it's been moved. Councillor Campbell, you will second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. 9.3, Eastern Bay Spatial Plan. Elva and Samantha. Is Robert with us?
He has just entered. Tēnā koutou to the Chair and Councillors. We're on page 46 of your agendas, and I'll just take this opportunity to introduce our brand new Spatial Planning Manager, just started this week. So this is Anton Coffin. And I do also just want to acknowledge our past Spatial Planning Manager, Acting Spatial Planning Manager, Alva Conroy, who's contributed quite a bit to the Eastern Bay Spatial Plan and the work from the Spatial Planning team. We also have online Robert Brodnax, who acts as the Project Director for the Eastern Bay Spatial Plan, and essentially this paper is asking you to identify who your project governance group member should be and the alternate. I know, Robert, did you want to say a few words before?
I think it's a pretty straightforward paper. The structure proposed for the spatial plan is very similar to we'll be familiar with. But I would note that we're learning from some of the inefficiencies that we've all experienced and difficulties with smart operating the structure. So I think it's going to be tighter and better, he says, with aspiration. So that's probably it, but I'm happy to take questions about the project and the direction if that helps you make your decision.
Thank you, Robert. And I think, could I just acknowledge your presence 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, when we had the tour to the Waikato, and your update in terms of the Waikato spatial plan. That was invaluable in terms of us looking at lessons learned and the way we can do things, especially regarding smart growth. Any questions of Robert in terms of this paper? If not, could I recommend, in terms of the recommendation, that Councillor Campbell be the BOPRC rep, with Councillor E.T. being the alternate?
Second.
To move and second the whole resolution?
If you like.
Okay, thank you, Councillor White. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Thurston, any further discussion? If not, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Robert.
Mr. Chair, can I just offer congratulations to Alva and the team who actually took a major award at the National Planning Group for the Makatu climate change. I think, and Alva herself took a nice award as well for her ability in planning. So just wanted to extend a thanks to Alva, and to obviously welcome our colleague over here, Anton Coffin, to the new role. Kia ora, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Thompson, do you have a...
Yeah, thank you. I'm ditto to what Councillor White has said. And yesterday, Alva gave a presentation to the former Smart Growth forums, and as per is her norm, it was outstanding. So I certainly want to endorse that. You mentioned on tour that there were some learnings given around smart growth. I know the saying is what goes on tour stays on tour, but I wonder if those learnings could be shared. I'd be very, very appreciative. Thank you very much. Well done. Welcome, Mr. Coffin.
Right. Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Alva. Very good. Can we move through to 9.4, Te Aroha Lakes Trust Framework Agreement? Pretty straightforward.
Morning, councillors. I'd just like to introduce this paper and table it as read. Really, this is just a continuation of our current way of working with our partners at Te Aroha Lakes. This framework agreement will just provide longer term certainty to Te Aroha Lakes Trust to enable them or give them confidence to continue with their capacity and capability building within service delivery around biosecurity and catchment works within the lakes. Chair, I'd just like to table the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Happy to move
Councillor Nees and Councillor Winters.
Well, thank you. Just with regard to this, just wanted to ensure that there's sufficient flexibility in the agreement in case there are unforeseen circumstances which, if something happens and council changes its work programs or its funding for those programs in the long-term plan, that there is sufficient flexibility to be able to cope with that without affecting the sensitive and really important relationship we've got with the Te Aroha Lakes Trust.
Kia ora, my name's Linda Frew and I work in the legal and the commercial team. The framework agreement is set up in a way that it provides an umbrella structure, and then we have individual work briefs under the framework agreement. And so there's complete flexibility around the work briefs that are set up in terms of duration and scope. And this is the current arrangement that we have with Te Aroha Lakes Trust, and it's worked very well.
Councillor Winters.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to move this, seconded if Councillor Thurston's moving it. I think this is really good value for money, Mr. Chairman. We've seen the catfish killers, and we've got a contract with Te Aroha Lakes Trust through William Anaru to do that sort of work. So this is incorporating all that sort of stuff. We've seen incredible value in terms of the unique way that William's brought to the table, and I think we get really good value for money in all of these things. He's bringing a different stance to what he does. And if TALT do this sort of bringing their unique way to engaging with our community, doing the work, then I think we're better off by doing this to TALT. So happy to second if Councillor Thurston's moving. Great for our community to have certainty.
Thank you, Councillor Winters. Councillor White, McDonald, then Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Winters. The Te Aroha Lakes Trust, obviously, we know they've got co-management requirements for the lake. They own the Te Aroha Lakes beds by a treaty settlement process. And this is their core business. This is part of their core business. Yeah. And I'm delighted to see that that Te Aroha are really in front and centre in this and doing the job. You know, it's almost at a situation for us is that, well, they're doing a great job, get on with it and continue to do it over the next 10-year period. I understand that this arrangement's in place. So, I'm very proud of them. Obviously, my hometown, Okude representative. I know all the Te Aroha players really well. And this is one part, a very delightful moment for Te Aroha Lakes Trust, in my view, to showcase the fact that they can do this. We've been to other places where sometimes people say, just now get out of the way and let us get on with the job. I think this is one of those moments. Get on with the job and keep on doing it well. So congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor McDonald.
Just briefly, just accolades to staff really on continuing to forge these relationships, these key relationships that we have with them.
Councillor Thompson.
Ditto all round. Well done, congratulations. Nice to put a face to your name, Linda. So lovely to see you. Can I just, because I'm so old and decrepit now, my memory is failing, can someone just remind me what the future holds for alum dosing?
Oh gosh, how long have you got?
Yes, for you, Chair. This is probably well outside my swim lane. I probably best to get a response back from Andy Berea to you, Councillor.
Through you, Chair, in a nutshell, it was only to be a short-term measure until such time as the land use change had occurred around Lake Rotorua. It is there for some time though, in terms of ensuring that lake's TLI is met. So, but it certainly was a short-term measure. It's turned into more of a medium-term measure.
I think Councillor Thompson, the short answer is it'll be around for a while. The consent was renewed only a couple of years ago, but the rate of alum dosing has reduced. But whether it's the climatic functions of this year, there has been elevated or an increase in terms of some of those blooms in the lakes. So I think that's the reality. Councillor White.
Yeah, maybe just to add a bit to that. Originally, when alum dosing was introduced, the iwi weren't particularly popular for this particular solution. And the premise was injecting another chemical into the lake to chase a solution. I think I agree with Fiona that I think there's a bit more relaxation now, and it's a medium-term option right now. So that's the view, my view of what the thinking right now too.
Thank you. Councillor Winters.
Greg, just remind me, we signed off on a contract with Mr. Kusab some time ago. This doesn't incorporate that contract, does it? That stands outside this?
Through you, Chair, that's my understanding. I think that's more around the research and through the Lakes Chair.
Thank you. So I was just going to make a couple of comments. Firstly, I support the recommendation. I think the relationship that this Toi Moana has with Te Arawa Lakes Trust is one of the more successful and productive relationships that we have. It got cemented with the late Toby, but I think with the current chair, Jeff Rolleston, we have a very open dialogue with him as well. And I think at the executive level, Fiona's worked really well with Karen Verco, who has since moved on to greater things. So we look forward to continuing that relationship. What I would have to say, though, is this is only one methodology to sharing the works. And I'd put it to you that we need a discussion as an entity with Te Arawa Lakes Trust about Section 33, which is essentially formalising the transfer of functions to that entity. Because I think their track record in terms of delivery has been very good to date. So I think look forward to that discussion, because I think that's where we will eventually end up. It's just been pointed out to me that, could I acknowledge Waka sitting next to Linda here today? I understand, Waka, you've been a key player and a key actor in a recent movie showcasing Tūhoe's role in the land wars, which is, I think, titled We Are Still Here. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Not so much.
Okay, so thank you for that. The resolution's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. 9.5. Proposed plan change 5, Katoona River.
Move the recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Nees.
I'm happy to second, but before that, I've got a query. I have raised it with staff. It's relating to the panel's recommendations. So on page 24 of their report, which is page 247 of our electronic agenda, under objective water quality, clause 85, it says the independent hearing panel resolved to include as a recommendation for the Kaituna River Authority to include a method to ensure that wherever possible water flowing into the Kaituna River is first be filtered using development wetlands as a filtering mechanism. And the responsibility for this development will fall upon the rivers and drainage scheme that the drainage scheme is part of. Now, I couldn't see that method added to the plan change, and I was a bit confused by the recommendation that the Kaituna River Authority adds that method. So I just wonder if somebody could tell me if the panel subsequently decided not to add that, or it's going to be activated through our
changes, freshwater changes. I'm just not sure how that recommendation flows through to the plan change we're signing off today.
Rachel.
Through the chair. In short, we didn't actually treat that as a recommendation on the freshwater planning instrument. It was a recommendation to the River Authority. There was no section 32 analysis of it, and it didn't flow through as a wording change in the document. So for that reason, we didn't treat it as a recommendation, and we didn't make any suggestions over whether that should be declined or accepted. But that recommendation will be taken to the Kaituna River Authority as per the report, and considered as part of the upcoming review of the wider plan change, of the RPS and the wider plan.
Yes.
Councillor McMillan. Oh, sorry.
It's a shame we haven't got a member of the panel here to actually talk to that. But the thing is that it's not really for the River Authority to add a method to one of our plans. So I just don't want to lose sight of this.
So the way that it was framed was around including a method, but not necessarily to the RPS. It was quite unclear. And unfortunately, we can't really ask the hearing panel what it meant. We just have to look at what they said and interpret that. And so we are going to take that general recommendation and look at it in the context of our wider review. It is something we'll raise with the Kaituna River Authority, who has the river document and the action plans that sit under it. So it might be something that they look at in that context as well. But we didn't think it was clearly a recommendation that you needed to make a decision on.
Happy to step in.
Councillor McMillan.
Just a question, just so I'm clear. So it's on page 223, the definition of riparian margin. Just wondering, is it that artificial watercourses must have a riparian margin or not?
The panel resolved to delete that definition of riparian margin because it was different to the existing definition in the Natural Resources Plan. And we thought that it could probably be, if we wanted to change the definition, it should probably be looked at in a wider whole RPS process. So currently the Natural Resources Plan definition excludes artificial watercourses. And if that wanted to be included later, then that would go through a full Schedule 1 process.
Okay, so when we look at the RPS, that's where we could look at whether or not that. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson, just before we speak, Councillor, so I think some of those regulations are going to be contained in NPSFM freshwater regulations, are they? In terms of riparian margin, planting, the debate about artificial watercourses versus natural. Yes or no? Maybe. Councillor Thompson.
Just following on from Councillor Nee's eagle-eyed observations, where would we be without that woman? I don't know. But can I just ask, I'm intrigued to learn, either formally or offline, learnings about this new process with the independent freshwater panel. Would it be possible for staff to be able to provide us with some observations around the process and any learnings? I'd be really grateful.
Absolutely. And I do understand through the chair that this may have been the first plan change first change to go through the freshwater process in New Zealand. It is.
Right, any further discussion? If not, Councillor Thompson's moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Nees, any further discussion? If not, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We move to 9.6, I think it is. Yeah, 9.6, minor amendments to the Regional Pest Management Plan. Mr. Corbett. Or Lisa, come up, Lisa. Yeah, way to go.
Hopefully this is a fairly straightforward paper. A few things have just come to light since the Regional Pest Management Plan became fully operative, namely the Latin name for koi carp has changed. We're having implementation issues for Rule 7. Basically, the self-certification checkpoints are being vandalised, so we just wanted to amend the rule so we could allow electronic self-certification. And then the third one was a National Pest Management Plan for Kauri dieback has come into effect, and whether we can include just a reference in the RPMP alerting plan users that there's other obligations.
Thank you, Lisa. That's pretty straightforward stuff. Moved Councillor White, Councillor McMillan.
Just a hypothetical question, really, but would it be cheaper to have an app for those instead of electronic and printed paper versions? Would it be cheaper in the long run to develop an app and just have people using that, or is that
after all?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Absolutely correct, Councillor, and that we're in the process of developing an app. We're hoping to have that available going into the next trout fishing season starting October.
Councillor Quintus.
Thank you. That was my question too, and that, Greg, sounds superb. So how will, as a user, how will the person on the ground at the boat ramp know that I've done the self-certification? Will it be number plate of the vehicle, number plate of the boat trailer, or something like that? How will they know?
My understanding is that we're using the registration numbers of vehicles like we are at the moment, but it's just in an electronic format, so there will still be the connection. The vessel will be linked to a registration plate of the vehicle that delivered it to the lake.
Yep.
And that they will be just going for a checklist on their phone or their tablet, just saying that yes, they have basically decontaminated their vessel trailer from weed and emptied any ballast water.
Yep. Thank you. And also this Kauri dieback, Tākina Kauri, now that we're having to up our game in terms of surveillance, is there any external funding that's going to come through this, through the National Pest Management Strategy?
Through you, Chair, that is correct. We have already receiving, I think we've received about $60,000 this year to support Kauri dieback activities. And we're looking at, again, partnering with Kaimai Kauri to deliver that program.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, Mr. Corbett. So the recommendation has been moved by Councillor White, second by Councillor Scott. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. 9.7, Integrated Committee Work Program. This follows from a workshop or a discussion that committee chairs had in terms of understanding and working together in terms of the respective work plans. So, Namuta.
Yes, councillors, page 87 of your agendas. As the chairman has said, you'll recall we had a meeting, the committee chairs had a meeting on the 16th of March. You asked us to put all the work programs together in an integrated work program. We've done that, and that's in your attachment 1. You'll see in your attachment 1, we've identified those areas as requested, which are legislative requirements, and they have the red box around them. And the other topics or other items are updates. We have identified that we will be monitoring this work program, and that monitoring work will feed into the review of the committee structure, which was another request that's been made at the end of the year. So happy to take any questions.
Councillor Nees.
Where will I find this on Diligent? Because I printed it out, but my elderly eyes mean I can't read a word. So I thought it'd be quite great if it was somewhere on Diligent so that we can go and have a look.
Absolutely. We'll get that sorted.
Yeah, through the chair, we'll get that up. Those can adopt it.
Sorry, it's my apologies, but at the start of the meeting, I was going to, because it's a formal council meeting, I was going to get the Chief Executive to formally introduce Steve. You met him the other day on Zoom. and he was present last night, we acknowledged, but Fiona, would you
Yes.
like to?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So Steve Broom is our new governance manager. He's the key person for you to connect with. And Steve will be doing the work in terms of looking at the review of the governance structure. And he's also will be the person who looks at Diligent in terms of how we can make it easier for you to have access to key documents.
Wadina Tato, it's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to working with you.
Right, councillors, you've got the recommendation in front of you there. We have a mover. Councillor Nees, Councillor McMillan, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much. 9.8, update on Whakatane or Hopi environmental program. I'd have to say that this is, as you see in the narrative, this has been a very successful, long-running activity that we've participated in as well, essentially with a lot of hard-working volunteers in the Eastern Bay of Plenty. Mr. Engel.
I'm actually not the presenter who's supposed to speak to this, but
is Pim not here?
He is. He's on his way, and so is Shay Dean, who's authored this. Shay's the person, our ecologist, who's been project manager of this project for some time. She's probably got a heck of a lot more information on this than I do, and I understand she's got 5 slides as well. And hopefully I'm just going to speak for another few seconds and they'll walk in. Come to the front.
Welcome, Shay. Welcome.
Thanks very much. We should know by now that you get through the agenda at twice the speed that it's set down by Tonna. So I'll let Shay do the talking to the presentation if that's all right, and then we'll answer any questions that you have jointly afterwards.
Kia ora koutou, katoa, Shay Dean tōku ingoa. I'm an environmental scientist for the council, but I also work closely with PIM's team in the land management offices, and I am the project manager for the Whakatane and Hopi Reserves Environmental Program, which is currently in its last year. EP aims to protect and enhance the ecological integrity of 6 sites in the Whakatane district, all around the Whakatane and Hopi township. So that's the Ohopi Scenic Reserve, Koi Point Scenic Reserve, Mokoroa Bush Scenic Reserve, Waiotani Scenic Reserve, which is south of the main map there, the Dodds QE2 Covenant and the Ngāti Awa Covenant. It's shown on the map on the screen. There's a number of partners to this EP, including Te Runanga o Ngāti Awa, Whakatane District Council, ourselves, Whakatane Kiwi Trust, Department of Conservation, and Te Tapatoru Atoi. This EP is the largest in the region by dollar value. The council has committed, Yes, so the EP is the largest by dollar value in the region. The council had committed up $1.1 million to the program over 5 years. So the costs you can see on the screen there are actually annual costs, with regional council committing $222,765 each year. And the partners commit a further $1.04 million in cash or volunteer resource to the project. Partners investment funds a program of pest plant control and pest animal control, a very intensive program of pest animal control targeting mustelids, possums, rats and wasps. And there's 3,600 bait stations and traps across the sites, serviced by contractors and volunteers. This EP continued good work that was undertaken through the previous EP or BMP that began in 2011, which in turn built on work that was started through an MOU with DOC in 2005. It's an excellent example of successful collaboration to improve biodiversity values. So as I mentioned, we're in the last year of the EP. Partners began meeting to start the process of reviewing and developing the new EP in March 2022. And they decided the first step was to undertake a review of how well the existing program has gone against its objectives and goals. So Place Group were engaged to undertake a review looking at all the data and reports and things. And they concluded that that the EP is generally on track to achieve its objectives. Possum and rat numbers have been maintained at low levels, native birds are flourishing, native plants, vegetation is doing really well due to suppression of browsers, and anecdotal evidence for increases in numbers and diversity of invertebrates and lizards as well. There are some issues which need to be worked through and resolved through the development of the new EP around kiwi survival, trap-shy chicks. Weka have turned up on the site since the first EP was written, and yeah, there's some operational issues around that which will be worked through. We are currently working with partners to develop the new EP. Partners have asked for an extension of 6 months to allow more time for partner discussions, and particularly for hapu engagement. We haven't done a lot of hapu engagement previously, and but initial discussions have indicated that hapu are very interested in potentially coming on board as partners to the EP. We expect to bring a new EP to council for approval before the end of the calendar year, which would cover the 5-year period from January 2024. And we're expecting this to sustain the current financial contribution of around $1.1 million over 5 years.
If I can just add a couple of points to that. The budget is provided for, so it's part of the coastal catchments activity under the biodiversity program. And the second thing is to note that the biodiversity program is the one that we have in place to achieve the shared regional biodiversity goal with the Department of Conservation. And that is, we've identified 429 sites in the region together, and management prescriptions for each of those sites that would see the threats managed and the values enhanced or maintained. This particular EP includes a number of those, what we call PBSs, or priority biodiversity sites. But because it's the largest one on our books, it gets a special mention at the council table, whereas usually they might just come through me or Chris because they're a few thousand or a few $10,000s of dollars in value. So any questions from councillors would be welcomed.
Councillor White.
Yeah, you made a comment that, I guess there's some more work to be done with hapu in terms of the consultation. The program has been in place for 5 years. Is there there has been consultation with hapu over that time or during that period?
That's probably a bit of an oversight. We are working closely with Te Runanga o Ngāti Awa, and I guess that was an incorrect assumption to assume that kind of covered off that base, and all the partners together have since realised that no, that's not really enough. So definitely wanting to do a better job on that this time around.
I could add to that one as well. So the other active party in the negotiations over the last 10 years has been NAGL, Ngāti Awa, Group Holdings Limited, as the landowner operating within the area of the environmental program. So in the previous iteration, the guidance from Ngāti Awa was that we were speaking with the correct people at the iwi level, and it's just that I guess the circumstances have shifted a bit over the last few years, and the expectation is now that Ngāti Hokopu, as the relevant hapu, be included as a partner in the negotiations for the next round.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add to that, I think it is an example of a PSGE, which is basically government entities, how important it is to be able to understand that the hapu are actually really important to be involved. That should fall to the Ngāti Awa to sort that out. But I think the oversight you mentioned is sometimes that gets missed, and then the hapu complain.
Thank you. So Councillor Scott McMillan and then Nees.
Yeah, just in terms of the timeline going forward, are there sort of negotiations around sort of quite general issues to get your head around, or is it detail? where are you at with that?
The Kiwi survival issue. When the trapping in the reserves was initiated, the survival went from very low up to about 70%. And it's since been slowly dropping off, and to the point where we're not sure we're going to meet our targets any longer. This is pretty typical of Kiwi projects where they're relying on one type of pest control method. So we're only relying on trapping, and the animals can become very wary of traps and less likely to go into them. So we think that there's traps stoats that won't go into our traps. So it's a bit of a technical issue. It's also one potential solution. It would be to use a toxin, which could be an anticoagulant or 1080. And there's always been a bit of nervousness around suggesting that, but we want to work through that and talk to Hapu and others about whether that would be an acceptable or possible solution, because that could be used irregularly, say every 5 years, to reset the population. So that's some discussion that we're going to be having through the new EP.
That's one of the technical issues, and the good news is that both the Department of Conservation and Ngāti Awa and the Kiwi Trust agree that that's an issue that does need to be resolved in the next 5 years, and probably once every 5 to 10 years as that trap shyness sort of reduces the chick survival. The other issue that Shay mentioned was weka and the bait station network. So when the bait station network was set up, there were no weka in the area, and so they could be mounted at ground level. Now we've set some cameras up and we've discovered that weka are pretty good at getting into bait stations when they're at ground level. So there does need to be some retrofitting, and that might include rat-specific bait stations that are smaller at ground level and possum-specific devices that are raised. But we'll work through that. There are some more general issues as well about making the objectives in the new agreement smarter, so that they can be better evaluated at the end, and then just getting the balance right between spending on operations and spending on monitoring to evaluate those operations and things like that.
Follow up.
So that's really when things make sense, and then we talk about negotiations. So it's about who's doing what and what part of their budget. Is that really what the discussions are about?
With the trap shy stoat issue, it's going to be about getting social license to use some of those toxins in around close to urban areas. Is going to be one issue. With the weka and making those changes to the bait stations and things, that's more going to be a cost. I don't think there's going to be any concerns with the partners about how we go about that. It's more just the cost of making those changes.
Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, I see, and it's great that it's sort of all together. When you add up, it's nearly 1,300 hectares that you're working on there, which is phenomenal. I'm just wondering if they're sort of just projecting forward vision. Would there ever be a case to be able to connect that Mokorua up with the QE2 over the top, so that that's one huge chunk there? Is that kind of something being considered?
We had some discussions about thinking about ways that we could improve the connectivity of the reserves, but we haven't really done a lot of thinking on that yet. But it is something we would like to give more thought to, how that can be done. Yeah.
Councillor Nees.
Thank you. I love hearing about really successful community collaboration like this. So, I really do support this. What I was thinking, just knowing how inflation is running, and the recommendations in the review report, that we need to be, or the operational entity needs to be investing more funding to get on top of these shy stoats and to perhaps enable a higher survival rate for kiwi chicks. And they also say, and we do not recommend any reprioritisation of spending. So I just worry that, in fact, their funding pool is actually shrinking in real terms. So has there been any thought to adding in other partners? I'm thinking Bay Trust, who are really putting their focus on environmental programs now?
We've certainly discussed the possible need to get further funding from external sources, and we were going to put together a funding plan to, and because there's certainly things that some of the partners would like to fund, would like to see happen that are over and above our current budget, which that could potentially be covered through Bay Trust or others.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Just some observations, Shay. Our friends from the east are migrating west, and believe it or not, they're even in the Strand in Whakatane, walking up and down the Strand. Do they do any damage to eggs at all? As we're talking our Weka friends here, are they doing any damage to stealing eggs or?
Short answer is yes.
Yes. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Just that I've got to be careful what I say here because I know there's everybody gets emotional about that four-letter or four-numbered word 1080, and just what's happened in the Raukumas in the last little while. Amazingly enough, I've been told by some of my council friends that 1080 doesn't survive in water. I totally disagree with that. I've lost dogs my own after 6 months of possum destroying possums in the Tarawera Valley. So I do know a little bit about that. But I just want to know if we are like Councillor Nees, are we getting enough concentration? Certainly, if stoats and the likes are being bait. Getting wary of baits, we need to sort of do some stuff. But rats are a real issue too. Rats will climb up anything. They'll climb a 100-foot pine tree to get to an egg. So that is a real issue right across the whole of the Bay of Plenty that I know of. So yeah, I just want to be a little bit conscious of what we're doing here. But goodness sake, if we can get some more people like East Bay Trust, the Bay of Plenty Trust on board, it would be great. And I'm pretty sure we can do. We know trust that we can do some stuff there with you.
I think on that point, Shay, if I remember rightly, Ngāti Awa were a recipient of a significant amount of money from Jobs for Nature, and the expectation was that other entities would stand in the market when that ran out. Is that on your radar? Because that's essentially where Councillor Campbell's coming from in terms of can we go to other agencies to help with that?
Because we're getting into the funding thing, I'll probably answer the question if that's all right. We've had one recent staff meeting with Bay Trust and TECT to look at, opportunities for them to collaborate with us and other community partnerships around the Bay of Plenty region. And I understand that there was another meeting yesterday involving some councillors. There'll be another staff level meeting to further explore those opportunities coming up. So it's definitely on the radar. The Jobs for Nature funding you're talking about is the Kore Haha Whakahau program, which is aimed specifically at trying to eradicate possums from that area between Ohiwa and the Whakatane River. So it's very closely aligned with this project, but it has its own specific objective of taking possums from low levels. So our project aims to get them below the impact threshold for common birds and other forest values. Their aim is to get them to zero. Sorry, I just slightly lost my train of thought there. I'll just have to regain my train of thought. I knew where I was going, but I've lost it briefly.
Sorry about that. Happens to all of us. Okay, councillors, I'll move the receipt of the report. Oh, you've remembered?
I've remembered, yes. So when it comes to tackling the Trapshire Stoat issue, we don't envisage that including an aerial 1080 operation in this area because it's so close to that urban environment. We see it being a specific targeted delivery of either a second generation anticoagulant or 1080 via bait stations. And we would allow rat numbers to increase for a period so that we presented the stoats with a lot of poisoned rats to obtain their dosage from. Now that's a method that's been used throughout the Northland Kiwi Sanctuary, the Coromandel Kiwi Sanctuaries and others. And it's probably the most viable way for us to get that Kiwi chick survival back up from 13% or whatever it is at the moment up into the 60, 70 plus range when it will start declining slowly again once we rely purely on trapping. But I think that's the most logical method. Now, the good thing about that methodology is it reduces costs for a short period while you pull out of your rat baiting for a year or so to allow numbers to increase. And then you can co-target rats and stoats with a different toxin and achieve the benefits associated with taking out your Trapshire stoats at the same time.
Thank you. I'll move that we receive the report. A seconder, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
matter arising.
Yes.
And this is really directed to our Chief Executive. The way the volunteer contribution has been assessed, I would really hope that coming into our long-term plan that we can get some robust information around the value of the volunteer contribution. I have to say, valuing them at $20 an hour, which is significantly less than the living wage, seems to me to be questionable. But I really would like that information because I think that in terms of community gold, community capital, we should be showing it on our balance sheet as community goodwill. Call it what you will, but it should be on our balance sheet because I just think it's so significant. The other matter is when there is to be a discussion around the use of toxins for pests, I will not be participating in that. That is not that I don't want pests eradicated. That is not my position at all. But I have seen how some pests die as a result of the use of toxins, and I find it personally, I just find it difficult. So that's just my position, colleagues, on this position. So when someone give me fair warning, when there's going to be a discussion about the use of toxins, and I'll go and have a long cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. On that point, we'll move to the late agenda item 14.1, Governance Proposal for Rotorua Future Development Strategy. This paper is self-explanatory. The rationale why it is here has been explained. It's explained in the paper. I would like to recommend in terms of point 3 that the BOP representatives are Councillor Thurston, Councillor White and Councillor Nees. The rationale for that is that I think it's very important that from a spatial planning point of view, that we have someone who has got the inside running in terms of smart growth here in the Western Bay, because that's the most developed spatial planning tool that we have, and that the interlinkage and lessons learned from smart growth may well be a point of discussion in Rotorua spatial planning. Councillor Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and happy to move that or second it. There was some discussion that my name should be there as well, and I'm happy to stand back, Mr. Chairman, and allow Jane to be the third representative here. And the reason for that is, Mr. Chairman, you'll recall I've just been appointed Deputy Chair of the Rotorua Te Lake Strategy Group, and that's where my energy is going to focus on going forward. I'd like to think my colleagues from Rotorua can pursue this. And as long as we don't build houses in floodplains and lesson learnt big time, you know, I'm happy for my colleagues to proceed with this. But that's where my energy lies, Mr. Chairman, and it is in the lake restoration program going forward. So I'm happy to second this.
Thank you, councillor White.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just obviously happy to accept the nomination with my council colleagues, Councillor Thurston and Councillor Nees, and I look forward to the learnings from Smart Growth, both good ones and not so good ones, to progress discussions in this particular space. Kia ora.
Thank you. Right, councillor, it's been moved by councillor Thurston, seconded by councillor Winters. All those in favour?
I can't nominate myself, Chair.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No.
It was councillor Scott, was it?
I just want to ask a question.
From Thompson, sorry. Yes, sorry, councillor Scott.
From time to time, we nominate an alternate. I wonder if that's an opportunity here, or is that not appropriate?
I think we'll all turn up.
Muta.
The terms of reference that have been developed don't provide for an alternate because there are 3 members and yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my mistake, councillor Thompson moved. Councillor Thurston.
I just wanted to thank colleagues and you in particular for receiving this as a late item. It came out of a meeting last Friday at RLC that was incredibly positive. And I think, for want of an expression, we're all on the same page. So the interesting thing is they ought to appoint a independent chairman. So that you may wish to comment on that, Namuta.
So at the meeting with our councillors and some of the Rotorua Lakes councillors, there was an agreement to appoint an independent chair, and the key action that came from that was the circulation of a number of CVs for consideration for email approval.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, councillor White.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce actually what Councillor Thurston is saying here in a way that, this is an opportunity to strengthen the relationship with the Lakes Council. And, we do have some issues from time to time with DLAs, and Rotorua is no exception, but it is an opportunity to start that relationship. And I think what came out of our meeting that we had in a very short time space was really an agreement to work together, to get to understand each other, and let's see how we can progress that. So I look forward to the conversations with our RLC and our own council.
Thank you, councillor White. So as I said, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you.